Oh, all right. Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of the Talk of the Town. Tonight we have representative from the rescue squad and from the school committee. We have Gary Suter join us from the rescue squad. As you might know, there's 2 overrides on the ballot, and this is to give you any information, or if you want to call in with questions on any final questions you might have before you go to the polls. But before we get started, tragedy in Boston today, our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people affected by that.
Definitely.
I know they were working feverishly on the TV when we came in to get that squared away. So once again, all right. So town meeting May 2nd, the elections the 14th. See, I had to ask Gary that because I had forgot it was the 14th. So on the ballot on the 14th, there'll be 2 questions. One to exempt the town from the limits of 2.5 for the rescue squad, and one also for the school department. So majority vote rules there, and if you do, your taxes will go up that much. And I had a paper here. Where is it? I had it in here with the amounts, but
I have no idea.
I'll find it.
I know ours is 16 cents.
16 cents.
So $32 a year on a $200,000.
Yeah, average house in Spencer is roughly 200 grand. Roughly, I think it's like 205, but it's around there. So it's 30 bucks,
Yep,
32 bucks.
Yep.
So 16 cents on a tax rate for the rescue squad. I'll find that paper for the school when they come in. I have it here somewhere. So what do you got? First, I'm getting this question a lot. How much money do we give to the rescue squad now? I'm getting this all the time, and it's 0. So
Right.
Nothing.
I think people are confused about this, and you know, so most towns, there's a line item in a budget.
Right.
Unless it's like ours, like there's a few like ours.
There's a few. North Brookfield, the Brimfield does it. But all of those privates, like even Brimfield, I don't know if they have a contract, but they have a payment from the town. Now North Brookfield has a payment from the town. So it's becoming more and more common to do it that way. But
So up into the state since 55 they started? 59. You've never received a penny from the town.
Right.
So this is new, and it's because of Medicare and all these issues. So.
That's 54 years of not getting any money from the town and functioning to a very high level, high standard.
That question I get, and the ALS thing.
Yep.
People don't understand it, and I didn't understand it until you. Can you just zing over that real quick?
Yeah. Advanced life support is being able to provide a higher level of care, obviously, than basic life support, but a paramedic administers the advanced life support care.
Sorry, EMT is one step lower than that. Paramedics like the highest.
Yeah, there's an EMT basic, there's an EMT intermediate, and then there's a paramedic. So the paramedic can administer drugs if you need
IVs, everything.
Yep. They can use cardiac monitors to keep you alive. They can pace you with a cardiac monitor. They can shock you with a cardiac monitor. We can take your EKG, transmit it to the hospital ahead of you before you arrive so that everything's ready for you. They can take care of stroke victims and things like that. And being 25 minutes away from a hospital, from a trauma center, it's pretty important that you have that intervention if you need it.
Right.
It can make all the difference in the world.
Seconds can count.
Right. If you're at the BLS level and you got to wait for ALS intervention, it could be tragic.
So BLS can't do IVs or.
They can't do anything intrusive. They can pretty much, they can bandage
Oxygen
you,
on you?
put oxygen on. They can bandage you. They can splint you.
Can't shock you.
No.
Can't do IVs, can't do anything.
No drugs. Can't administer any drugs if you need them. Medications.
I know years ago my dad, he used to work for Bemis and Hobbs in town, and he was working someplace, and his ticker stopped. So he called the ambulance, and they got there in time to zap him, because he had a defibrillator thing.
He did.
Yeah, but they still had to
Yeah.
do stuff, so it worked out good for him. But.
And that like means aspirin too. I mean, they couldn't administer aspirin to you, and that's one of the
Right.
first things they do
Right.
at the hospital when someone's in cardiac arrest.
Oh, really? You can't do that?
No, they can't. If they're not a paramedic, they're not allowed to administer anything.
So there's a lot we can do. We were one of the first services in the area to get a project waiver from the state to use a CPAP mask for someone who can't breathe.
Right.
Like if you have sleep apnea.
Yeah.
So it's non-intrusive, so instead of putting a tube down someone's throat to get them to breathe, you can just put the mask on.
Yeah, it's that tight mask, right?
And it forces oxygen or air into their lungs so they can breathe easier. So now that's common protocol throughout the state. Every ALS service can do it. But we were one of the first to try it out for the state. So And we were one of the first to do the transmission of EKGs directly to the hospital with UMass.
So I thought this was kind of corny, because remember we were kids, what was Emergency,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
show? When they used
yeah.
to do that, they said, I forget the doctor's name. The nurse was Dixie. What was the doctor's name, you remember? John.
Doctor, but I remember Gage. Gage was the guy.
Johnny
Sure.
Gage and Roy DeSoto.
You're getting way
And
off base.
Dixie, no, and they would do that, but that's exactly
was
what
way
it is.
back when,
But
right.
that's exactly what it is, right?
Right.
They transmit that, and the doctor can, so he knows.
They know what kind of rhythm you're in,
Right.
and
Right.
what kind of treatment you're going to need when you get there, and they have the appropriate people waiting for you.
And that makes a big difference, like we said, because if it's the type of thing where you need time, once you get to the hospital, that takes time for them to do that. The
Yeah.
nurses have to go in, they have to apply all the little electrodes in the certain spots, they
Right.
have to run it, they have to wait for it to come out. If it's already done before they even get there, they're ready to just go into action.
Right.
Yeah, there's a certain type of heart attack. It's called a STEMI. It's if you're in that sort of rhythm and they take you to the hospital, if you transmit it ahead of time, they have the STEMI team waiting for you. You go right up to the cath lab and they put a cath in and open up the artery. And so there's a big push for that nationwide, that the door to balloon time for when you get to the hospital to when they open up your artery, they want it less than 90 minutes. And we've had quite a few where actually from the field, from when we pick the patient up to when they open up the artery is way less than 90 minutes. So it's been a pretty effective program, and that's obviously increases your chance of survival.
So you guys, explain this again, because I'll probably get it wrong. The subscription drive,
Yeah.
and what that does for somebody.
So we've been doing this for as far back as I can remember. We mail it out to every household. For a family, it's $50. For senior or single person, it's $35 a year. If you use the ambulance and you don't have insurance, we don't charge you.
Right.
If you have insurance that doesn't pay everything, high deductibles or copays, then we write off the balance. So, for the seniors and the fixed income people, I mean, seniors all have Medicare and Medicaid, and usually there's a 20% copay on that. So they're going to owe at least another $100 to $125. So, we get a pretty good participation from the seniors and the fixed income.
Even still nowadays, most insurance plans have high deductibles because people want to keep their costs down. So
That's one of the problems we have. That's why we're in, sort of the position we're in, with employers. To keep the premiums down, they offer a higher deductible plan. Medicare rates are going down. So, and people don't understand that until they use it, and then they find out that you call them up and you say, well,
You owe me $1,000
you owe us for the,
bucks. What?
They say, no, I have insurance. I said, yeah, we build your insurance. It's all under your deductible, and that they don't like to hear that, but. And nobody really checks that stuff out until you have to use it, and then
Right.
it's kind of too late.
Too late.
Nonprofit. So you guys, you can't make money.
No.
What is it? You have to break even every year?
No,
Is that how it works?
Nonprofits can make money, but none of the profits can go to the people that run the organization or the board of directors.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So all that profit that you make has to be put back into
Put
the
back into the
organization, either
place.
through equipment, expansion of the service or something like that. You can't. Whereas a for-profit, they're there to make money for shareholders or owners or whatever. So they'll take a percentage of that profit and distribute it to the owners and not put it back into the
Right.
company. So it's similar to, we like to equate it to like the American Red Cross and the Heart Association. We serve the greater good as opposed to a board of shareholders or owners, that are in it to make money.
They're looking out for themselves.
So, in some cases, decisions might be made that could affect patient care. If you're thinking about, am I going to make $1 on this or not? And so they might make a decision different than what we would do. But, the nonprofit thing, it's pretty much not owned by anybody. It's owned by the community. So if we were to go out of business, we'd have to distribute that to another nonprofit.
So your board of directors, unpaid,
Yep.
how many is there, Gary?
Now we have 7.
So they make all the major decisions for the ambulance service
Yep.
and
Yep. I'll bring, they'll ask me to look into things. I'll bring them to them. They'll decide, and then we do it. All local guys, local business people and whatever. Very dedicated, and obviously want to see the service continue because we think we do a great job.
call volume.
Yeah, I think there's been some confusion about this too. Last year, we transported just under 1,000 patients to the hospital. But in addition
That's actually picking somebody up and bringing
bring
them
them to the hospital.
Okay.
In addition to that, we did between 400 and 500 calls where we don't transport a patient. We'll get called to Howe Village for somebody that falls or falls out of bed. And so we'll go check them out and put them back in. Or we'll go to a motor vehicle accident, you get there and nobody wants to go to the hospital.
Right.
So there's a lot of calls that we go to that we don't transport a patient, and we don't get paid if we don't transport a patient. You know, we're not like trying to force them into the ambulance. It's our job to check them out. But so we actually responded to 1,400 or 1,500 calls, but only 1,000 of them were actually transports to the hospital.
So those are the only ones you get paid for, what's that?
Right. The other ones are just like a public service type thing.
Are we the only ALS around?
We're the only ALS that's actually staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. East Brookfield is ALS, but they don't always have a paramedic on duty, and sometimes they rely on mutual aid from surrounding towns.
Okay.
So, we pretty much are the only show in town, depending on the day of the week. After a certain time at night, it could be the only paramedics on.
So if they're not staffed at night, what do they do? Call you guys,
Or somebody.
Depends what town they're going through.
Right, or they'll drive to Leicester and pick up a paramedic in
They'll
Leicester
stop
or Worcester or
whoever.
wherever,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, because North Brookfield's BLS.
They went
right?
back to the BLS level because they couldn't afford to keep their license. And
Yeah.
they have to staff it at a certain level to be able to maintain that license. So rather than lose their license, they voluntarily gave it up.
And plus, you said the insurance is high, right?
Yeah,
Your insurance bill every year, it's
Yeah.
crazy high.
yeah, yep.
Look at all these questions I got on the thing here. Hang on.
Pretty good questions.
They are pretty good questions. Rescue squad budget. Listen, why don't you tell us about the budget and how the rescue squad works? And so Gary works there. He runs the place.
So I'm the executive director, and that involves many hats. I'm like the chief operating officer, the chief financial guy, the chief executive guy.
Listen, if you got to read off that paper to know that you're the executive director, then we get a problem with it. Go ahead.
I handle, the human resource stuff. I manage the website, and if the truck needs to go to the garage to get fixed, I'll drive it there and
Yeah,
drive
you're
it
like
back.
the Adam, the town manager for the town.
you do
You're
whatever
like
you
that
gotta
for the-
do.
You're like that for the
Right.
rescue squad, basically.
Right. We've got 35 employees. 5 of them are full-time. That includes me, myself, 3 paramedics, and 1 EMT that are full-time. Only 2 receive benefits. So the other 30 employees are part-time. So we think that model is pretty efficient because all these guys that we have working for us work somewhere else full-time. So they get their benefits somewhere else.
And experience.
And their experience. Many of them work in larger systems, bigger, more volume than we have. So they're well-trained and well-versed in what they need to be, as opposed to somebody who works in one of the Brookfields that may only see, 1 or 2 calls a week. These guys are seeing, 5 or 6 calls a day where they work. So
Right.
they're very well experienced and equipped.
Right, and someone that doesn't just do transport. 'Cause
Right.
a lot of the companies will
Right.
just do transport, like if someone from, like an old age home needs to
So,
like the
yeah, but
X-rays or
what,
the
so what
MRIs.
is that? So why would you have to transport somebody? Because they can't go in a car, like they need
Right.
From the
oxygen or
hospital.
something?
If
Yeah.
someone's going from the hospital and they
Yeah,
need
but
to be
why?
brought,
Is it because they
Well-
need that care, or?
It may be like somebody going from a rehab facility if they have to have physical therapy and
Yep.
they can't do it there. so
Can't
they'll bring
walk
them
and
to-
that stuff?
Right, so they'll take them in.
Oh,
and
okay, all right.
There's really no medical care going on.
Right.
There are some instances
It's a
where...
just in case you got to hurry and you have some stuff in
Well, and some of the cases may be urgent, where they may need a medic in the back or an EMT in the back to make sure the blood pressure's okay, if they had something. But for the most part, it's just, it's non-emergency, it's scheduled transports.
right,
And it's a moneymaker. I mean,
Yeah, you said that, yeah.
Yeah, and the services that do that well. And there's a reason, I think, that services don't do both, So we don't do any non-emergency stuff, so we only do emergencies.
Well, like you said, it's a lot of it's from nursing homes or rehab facilities. Like
Right.
we don't have any here, right?
Right.
So-
Yeah, it's tough, for us to do non-emergency work, you'd have to take your truck out of service too long. If you're in the city and
Right.
your ambulance is there and you're going from Memorial to St. V's, it might take you 15 minutes to get there, and then your truck's back available to do another call. Here, we'd have to go to Harrington, which is a half an hour away, and then take them to Worcester, which is another half an hour away, and then wait for the patient. So it's just not effective for us.
And
to
that
do
would be okay if you had the call volume to hire 2 more people to do
Yeah,
it all
exactly.
the time. You know, if
Exactly.
you had call all day long, they were doing that, right?
Right, and we don't want to take our truck out for a non-emergency and then leave the town uncovered if something bad happens and somebody needs an ambulance for an emergency situation. We wouldn't want that to happen. And you're right, we don't have the call volume or the revenue stream to support another crew. So we've never considered that. Doesn't mean we wouldn't, but it doesn't make sense
It's
for
not
us.
your first priority.
Yeah, if the need's there and you can
Right.
make some money on it, but if you can't
Right.
make any money, why do it? Why bother?
Right.
You know? Paxton.
Paxton's we think Paxton is a great example of a regional agreement. You know, we've done that. We've been doing that since August 2007. They actually had a private ambulance service in there that wasn't serving them well. And so it took a couple of years to put that together. So now, the interaction between Paxton and Spencer is really beneficial to both communities. It's like Spencer has 2 ALS ambulances
Right.
all the time, and so does Paxton.
Right.
And Paxton would never have 2 ambulances all the time, and neither would Spencer.
Yeah, because Paxton only has a few thousand people in it,
They're
right?
like under 4,000.
Yeah, it's not many.
And their call volume is probably 400 a year.
Yeah, it's
where
gotta be-
Ours is 1,000.
yeah.
So they could never attract the people with the experience that we have, and I don't think they could afford to do the same level of service that we're providing. So it actually works out great. So for Spencer, some people think that it might take away from the service we provide the town, but it actually, you know, so if our ambulance goes on a call, the Paxton ambulance sits up by the black and white.
Right.
So they can go back to Paxton or come to Spencer should they need to do that. So it's like we can cover all first and second call. So it's like having 2 of our own
Right.
trucks here.
And they're ALS too, because they use
Right.
your license?
Right. We
So they're
provi-
staff,
Yep.
paramedics?
We provide them with the paramedic. They provide their own EMT. They own the trucks, but we license them. They say Spencer Rescue on them. So it's really a unique partnership with them, and it's worked out great. And they want to re-up for another three years. So
Okay, and I just want to,
Yep.
just tell me again, they had hired what kind of company to come in?
No,
No, okay. Go ahead.
she's an instigator, isn't
I
she?
am.
She's
I will-
awful.
I will
I'll
cause
be
trouble
glad
if
to
I
answer.
can.
Hey,
question.
on a side note, May 6th,
You slipped it quick, but I don't know if everybody
the
caught
next
it.
TV show is May 6th, and May 6th will be 13 years that I've been putting up at Wendy, yelling at me every day. So we got applause from the room in there. So the regionalization thing,
Yeah.
all towns are going to have to do this eventually. I know there's resistance, and I see this being the mayor. See, I threw the mayor thing in it.
it's going to have to happen.
Yeah, I know, 'cause
Not just
every-
with EMS,
you know,
with fire, maybe
exactly.
police as well.
Yeah, because everybody wants their own stuff, and I completely understand that. But
Right.
I mean, eventually, it's going to have to happen.
Because economies of scale, you know, it's like, does everybody need a expensive ladder truck, you know?
Yeah.
The chances of it being used in 2 towns at the same time
Yep.
are pretty slim. And we know that, you know, we know that we got to change what we do, but the whole change in the healthcare industry has come upon us rather quickly, and when you consider we've been here for 54 years, it's really over the last 12 to 18 months that think we've seen a change, and we've been tracking it. And we know we're going to have to do something different over the next year. But if we're going to do another regional agreement or bring another town, then it's going to take a year or 2
Yeah,
to
it
get
takes a
that to
while,
work out.
yeah.
You know, everybody wants to have a seat at the table, and it just doesn't happen that quickly. It took a good 2 years to get Paxton ironed out. But we were hoping that would show that it can be done, and, you know, it's a good arrangement
And
for everybody.
the same thing, like, so the regionalization thing, you know, like everybody wants their own thing. And I understand that, but, and like we say, it's going to have to happen. So that's what Tony and I had talked to
Right.
you about
Right.
when we met, that,
Yeah.
you know, it'll be easier if we help. You know, if we go to the selectmen in another town and say, hey, listen, let's
Sometime
work this.
opening that door, right, it makes it a lot easier to get that conversation going.
Rather than just one service saying, we want to take you over, you know, it's
Yeah.
a different thing, so.
Because really, it's all about serving the people, you know, and the residents. So,
All right, we got a phone
They
call.
weren't taken. Speaker? Gotta hit speaker.
There's no light. Hello?
Yes, I would like to talk about the rescue squad.
Who is this?
Tom.
I know who this is. How you doing, Tom?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Tom used to be my boss when I worked at Price, what was it, Price right back then?
Oh,
right.
me too.
But you worked there? Yeah, I was a bagger.
Gary was there also.
He was? Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet I was better than him. What's your question?
Okay, what I was wanting to mention the fact that I think that people have to stop and realize and think about this override that we're going to have, because this more or less affects each and every one of us. And you know, your squad has been excellent, and we don't really know how good it is until you have to use it. And there comes one day when each and every one of us will have to use it. So I definitely think that they should vote for the override. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and I hear that too, you know. And
You just, you know, we think we do a great job, and we think our employees are second to none. But it's tough to quantify that until it's gone, you know?
Right.
You don't know.
Right.
I mean, everybody knows what we do. You're not quite sure what somebody else will do until they're here. And once they're here and we're gone, we're not coming back.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
problem.
That's
So
what people need
what
to
if-
know that too.
Yeah, so we had found as much as we could in the budget,
Yep,
and it's
right.
probably not going to be enough. So, I mean, pretty close. So your board decided they wanted to do the override and give it a shot. That way it's always
Yeah,
there.
there were several,
And that's fine.
several
It was
reasons
just-
for
yeah.
that. Yeah, and originally when we started out and we thought we were going to have to go the contract route with the town, we really didn't want to take funds away from other departments because it just creates a bad atmosphere, and it's kind of a new service that the town will be paying for. So we think we should be able to live or die on our merits, on what we provided to the town. So we don't have a problem with going for the override and funding the contract by that. The $110,000, with what we see in decrease in call volume and changes in healthcare and the Affordable Health Care Act, or the Obamacare, hasn't started yet.
Yeah,
We don't think that's going to help.
That's going to be a nightmare.
So we think that there's a possibility that the 110 might not be enough. And we think we need 2 or 3 years to really change the business model, not just one. So that, several reasons went into that.
So we talked about this, but tell everybody, what if the override fails? What happens?
If the override fails, obviously we don't get a contract, and if we don't get a contract, we'll close. We will close the doors at a date to be determined. We'll have to review our, we've got some options, but we got to worry about selling the building. We don't want to, give it back to the bank. We want to honor our obligation to pay the loan, so we got to keep enough funds available to pay that mortgage until we can sell it, give the employees proper notice. We've got to really deal with Paxton, who's kind of like in the balance right
In
now.
limbo, yeah.
Because they'll need to do something different if we go away. But it's not like if another department didn't get an override, they may go back and cut the budget, so they'll still be there, but just in a different sense.
Right.
If we don't get the override, there's no second bite at the apple. We're just going to go to the shutdown plan
All
and
done.
go from there.
Okay.
done.
We have another call. Hang on. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, what's your question?
My question is, the override's for $150K. What percentage of the actual operating budget is that?
Very good question.
Yep.
Is that your question?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So our operating budget is about 1.1 million
Total.
total, and so the 150,000 would be about 14% of that. So it's not half. It's not the whole. It's about 14%.
You didn't even have to look at your notes for that. That's pretty good.
I'm the numbers guy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I would have my
all
phone
the
out
stuff.
and I'd be
Be
going.
figuring calculator. Where's my calculator?
Okay, so the process goes, so there's an article at town meeting, and what the articles at town meeting do, they allow the town to spend the money, basically. What the override does allows the town to tax over the 2.5 proposition limit. What was 2.5? 1984 when they did that?
Yeah, 83, early
Yeah.
80s. Yeah.
So every year, the town, we can't increase your taxes by more than 2.5%, which is a great thing. I can't imagine what it was like before that, but I can only imagine. But so that the question on the ballot will allow us to raise the money. The question at the article at town meeting will allow us to spend it and enter into a contract with the rescue squad. So it's pretty straightforward. It's
Yeah, and the town will have, we'll be able to negotiate what the town wants in that contract as far as performance standards and response times and that such a thing. So, obviously we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but that will be all on the table.
well, I mean, if the override fails, we're going to have to hire another service anyway.
Well,
So we don't
Right.
have to, by statute, we have to have an ambulance service, so
right.
we'll have to do something.
And like I said, there was an article in the paper this weekend about I think it was Northbridge, where the fire chief was saying, they're going to have to contribute more to run the ambulance because they need more staff. And it's going that route in a lot of communities, So even if you got it for nothing for another year or two, I got to imagine after that, they're going to be susceptible to the same demographics and insurance problems that we have. And
Right.
So they're going to say, well, we're going to have to charge you something.
Right.
So I don't see that service being free anymore,
When did North Brookfield start getting money from the town? Because like you said, North Brookfield was a nonprofit
Right.
executive board
Yeah.
type thing, and
Yep, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago.
yeah.
And they were in tough shape, but the town, I think the town gave them space in the fire department, so they don't pay rent or anything like
Yeah.
that. So they house their stuff there. But, they survived. And we've talked about that, whether it would be beneficial for the rescue squad to drop down to a lower level and operate at a lower cost.
Like BLS
Right,
type stuff.
but we're so far from the hospitals, and because the staffing around us isn't as consistent as it should be, it's like it just leaves the people exposed. And, we've done a lot to get to the level that we're at today, and we've made a lot of investment in equipment and people and building our building, that we just don't think that it does anybody any favors to try and lessen the service to save a dollar.
Well, how many of those 1,000 calls are the ALS part, that you wouldn't be able
Right.
to do if you dropped it down?
Right, about 600. About 60% is ALS.
So you wouldn't be able to, you could
Right.
still take them to the hospital, but you couldn't perform all the
You couldn't
stuff.
do it, you'd
that
have to drive to Leicester or Worcester and hope you can find a medic in between that could jump in, but, 20 minutes have gone by at that point.
So Gary, so if you have BLS guys and they come, can they not do that stuff? Or
They can't,
they can't. You have to be a paramedic to do that stuff. Even if it meant saving somebody's life, you couldn't zap them.
can't do it.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, they got those zappers in the town hall. They're everywhere now with directions on them. So you would think.
Well, and
I
the
know
ones-
it's different
Well,
because
and
it's
the
an
ones we
ambulance.
have, if the paramedic's not using them, they actually go into like an automatic mode where the machine will actually read the heart rhythm and determine if they need a shock.
And it'll zap.
Right. And that's like the ones that the police carry. It actually takes a reading and then determines whether you need to be shocked or not.
That's like my dad's thing he used to have.
Right, the
'Cause
internal one, same
And
thing.
his rhythm would go or it would stop. It would zing.
Right,
And people don't realize until they need it. I mean,
right.
when my mother was alive, she was brought in by the ambulance several times with heart attack. And you and your family don't realize how important and valuable it is until you're there.
And like I said, it's tough to explain all that, but the only thing you can equate it to is if you're going to go in for heart surgery or you're going to go in for some sort of procedure, I don't think you shop around for the cheapest doctor.
No, you don't.
I think you want the guy that does the best job, who has the most experience, that's seen the most of those operations that you're going to have. So
Yep.
if something happens while you're on the table, he knows how to handle it. And I think we're similar to that. You want the guys that have been around the block, that have the experience, and it's not always the least expensive option, but it's certainly best for the patients.
See, I'm not smart enough to do that. So when they diagnosed me having a 6-pound tumor in my gut and it was all everywhere, and so the trauma guy came in and did the thing, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna take that on. I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, we got to find out who knows how to do this. I'm
We
like,
need an oncologist in
and I'm
there.
like,
We
he
need-
can do it. He can. Yeah,
because
big
they're saying-
mistake.
They're saying, oh, well, this could possibly like this. Just cancer, which is a very, very
Yeah.
severe.
so
and-
I say, just let him do it. Yeah. 2 years later and
Holidays.
complications. I'm like,
So I hope Wendy's your healthcare proxy,
Oh,
not making all
shit.
your decisions.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. I really am, but I'm still the mayor. All right. You got anything to add before we bring the school in?
The only thing I'll say is, we're looking for people to help us. If we've served you well, you've used the ambulance, vote yes, May 14th. And you can go to our website. I think it's on the screen, spencerems.org. And we have information there. And we've got a Friends of Spencer Rescue Squad that you can help out and make phone calls, put a sign up or whatever.
What can people just volunteer to help down there? Do you guys do that or?
No, you have to
No.
be certified in CPR and trained, and you can't ride on the ambulance unless you've got all kinds of stuff.
No, but could they go in and take calls for you, or clean for you, or,
Oh,
or
sure.
wash trucks,
Oh,
or,
sure,
or
that sort of
anything
thing.
like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, to volunteer down
Yeah.
there with them. I know
I thought-
I know our little one likes to go down to the rescue squad and see the trucks and everything.
Yeah,
And he likes to bring little Beanie Babies for
And
the
you,
little
yeah, and you
kids.
did. Thank you very much for doing
The
that.
little kids that ride
Right,
in.
right.
Yeah.
I thought you meant could they help saving lives. Even I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, kidding me.
I know my limitations.
I'd be going, what do I do? What do I do? And she'd be going, calm down. This is what you do. Tom and Eddie. All right, so that one again is 16 cents on the tax rate. The average house, it's 32 bucks, so 2 something a month, roughly. You're the numbers guy. 275 a month, roughly.
Oh, $2.75? Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on.
Can
Oh,
they
no,
make
thank
donations?
you.
Can people make donations, or
Yes, they
do we
can.
have a website up, or where they can contact?
I think they were putting up the website address where they can get information and in our phone number. They can contact me directly. at the office.
SpencerEMS.org.
There you go.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
All right.
Okay, we need a sign for our lawn.
Thank you.
I can't do signs on the lawn, honey. We can't do that.
I can.
No, we can't. You have to stay, when you put the question on, you can't do that. So.
Oh,
Ethics.
it's so no fun.
Yeah, don't get yourself in trouble.
So
I
no
know.
fun. Okay.
Hey,
All
Gary.
set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you on the 14th,
Second.
the 2nd. Yeah, I'll be there.
And I'm sure you'll see me a lot in between with waving.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
Thanks very much.
Maybe you'll get a picture, a good ink in the paper or something. Sometimes those things always
That's what we
do.
have Michael
So
Wash for.
that's right.
There you go.
All right, Gary, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to bring in representatives from the school district. We have, do you say chairman or chair lady? What do you say?
Chairperson?
Chairperson, Madam.
Chairperson Mary Gershman. I didn't know the protocol. We have
Person.
interim business manager Richard Scortino and Paul Forney. You don't have a title, right? You know? No. I always forget.
I take no offense. None offense.
No, I don't know.
I can't hop out.
No,
Yep, there's microphones right for you guys. Paul, I think you have a mic down there too. Perfect.
We got to get one of those mics you drop down from the ceiling.
A boom mic? A boom.
And you guys have been awful quiet tonight. Usually they're throwing stuff. You know, Paul's been here, and they have a good time in there. Last month when we did the candidates thing, I was out there.
This is an important show.
They don't.
Get together.
They don't do anything. They don't do anything.
Thanks.
They have a blast. So. All right. So we had the rescue squad. Now the school department needs an override for next year. So that was one of the questions I've been getting. For this current year, the money's borrowed, guaranteed loan through the state,
Correct. Well, the legislation it has been filed.
pending.
Yes, the legislation is pending, yes.
But that money is to finish this year.
Right, because we cannot end in a deficit.
Right. So next year, this is what the override's for next year and forward.
Correct.
And Spencer's total is, I don't have it in front of me, Rich.
Spencer's.
Why don't you give a little synopsis here, because
Sure. Spencer's total is, on the assessment only, is $9,245,911. And that is an increase of $2,180,228 over last year.
right, 2.2. And East Brookfield's,
East Brookfield
because
is-
this goes to East Brookfield too, so anybody in East Brookfield, you can call in if you have a question also.
Okay. East Brookfield's 14 assessment is $2,292,053, and that's an increase of $538,179. It's a 30.69% increase.
Yeah, it was like 30% for
Both are in the 30% range.
So we all know how we got here, and I know you can't talk about it, but, all right, so what does this do for the school next year, this extra money?
Well-
What happens if you get it, and what happens if you don't?
Well, we've, one thing we didn't, I'm gonna start it with the negative, but one thing we didn't do is we didn't paint a face on this particular budget with the assessments that go along with it. Normally, what you would do if you had a time,
Meaning
well.
a person?
Say again?
Meaning a person?
Correct.
In other words, describe the instructional program, that, right to the point of your question. We didn't really describe in any great detail the nature of the instructional program at this budget. The budget is actually $500,000 less than we're spending now, Don. And it's an increase of $1,070,000 over current year budget. But the rate of spending now, for reasons I'll explain in a little while, the rate of spending now is significantly higher than what you're looking at for the 26,453,875 budget. That includes a reduction in staffing of well over $1 million, approximately 26.5 staff combination of not replacing retirees, people that were laid off in February, and a layoff of all first-year teachers that were hired that were unbudgeted current year. So, but we had major increases in health, which we think is going to come down significantly when we do the final actuarial for that study. So that should come down, and we're also encouraging our health guys, our third-party administrator, to look carefully into joint purchasing. So in other words, a combination of 12, 14 towns surrounding.
You guys are in the GIC, right?
For the retirees.
Oh, just retirees?
Just certified retirees.
So employees are on their own? You don't have a...
No, they're insured under the district plan.
Right, but you're not a member, because we're a member of Maya.
Right.
You know, same type of thing as GIC, but throughout the state.
There's some differences.
You like the
How's that?
snapping fingers? How about, hey, Rich, can you move the mic up instead of, hey,
Can you hear me? Okay.
you in the middle, move your mic up.
All right.
How is this going to affect kids next year, class sizes? They're going to stay about the same, right?
With the budget we developed, class sizes will be essentially the same. There's not going to be much of a change in class sizes. The hires were never really brought forth in a lot of cases to the school committee. So, and they were unbudgeted. Now, there was a plan to do some reorganization. If you recall, I think he did present that plan to you.
Yes.
He presented to me. I actually found that paperwork, and it looked great. This is beautiful. So I got to be the first one to tell you. He had me snowed too, so.
Well-
I know you guys can't say anything, but I can.
And
Guy's a
On
bozo.
paper, everything looked wonderful.
It looked great. He
we're
was
not
great.
going to say anything derogatory, Don. I mean, you know, it's what is, it is what it is.
I will,
And-
but I know you
Well,
can't. Okay.
well, it's up
go
to
ahead.
you. You know.
I told you we like to keep this light, Rich. We're just gonna have a
It's
good
up to
time.
you. I mean, when we looked at the, you know, as we presented to East Brookfield the other night, when you look at the understated revenue and the understated expenses, there's a lot of revenue that is not going to recur again this year. What the assessments do, in essence, is replace that understated revenue and the expenses that it should have been a lot higher than they were. And the example, the perfect example, and I'll give one of the two rather than go into a lot of detail, but the district had a grant, a job ed grant, in 12 for $620,000.
That was a federal grant, right?
It was a federal grant, right. And so what the former superintendent did was artificially lower the cost of the health insurance by the $620,000. Well,
Which
it
you
was
could do with that grant, right? You
which
could
was
use
fine.
it. Yeah.
It was appropriate to, you know, what he did with it, and he did lower it. The problem is, it wasn't going to
yeah.
occur this year.
He didn't get it.
And he still left, yeah, and he left the lower figure in the budget. So it really was a $2.3 million budget, and he had it reflected as 1.6 for health. So, you know, you can't do that. You know, it's not something that's appropriate, and certainly you're going to get into trouble in subsequent years. That's only one of the several.
So a lot of this problem, so people know, is, what was it, 1.7 between the expected revenue that you really didn't get and the overspending with the hires and stuff. It was 1.7, right?
A little over there, probably 1.77 or something like that. Yeah.
So really next year, you're only looking for $1 million, technically.
Technically, yeah, and
Not that only $1 million is not, but.
it's, and then when you add in things like taking all your revolving accounts, and revolving accounts are restricted. I mean, they're not used for operating expenses. So he took a slice of time
to write them down.
in February of 2012, and he took the $390,000 and applied the entire kit and caboodle to offset your operating
budget,
expense.
yeah.
You know, which is a no-no. It just goes and flies in the face of a lot of issues, especially regulations from the Department of Ed. Now, what you can do, I mean, you can take some of that money if you have surplus in certain accounts, like building. We have a rental account where we let the building out for certain purposes. You could take surpluses in that account and offset your expenses in, let's say, electricity or custodial services.
Right, because
You
it's
can
the
do that.
same
Right,
building stuff.
because it's appropriate to.
Yeah, we could do the same thing with our
Right.
revolving accounts.
Right. But you can't take all the $390,000 he thought was going to be there, and it wasn't,
Right.
and apply it to offset assessments. So those are the kinds of things that happened in 13, current year, that, we're going to play it by the book, and unfortunately, this is what the result was. Now, but this gives you essentially level services, Don.
Yep.
It doesn't give you much more than that, but it does stabilize the district. It will stabilize the instructional program, which is where the essence of running a regional school district is for.
And I'd just like to make a comment about the class sizes. One of the questions that I do get a lot is East Brookfield's class sizes going to be affected as well? What people don't realize with East Brookfield, we have to not only follow the regional agreement that we have, that students from each town go to the schools that they live in.
Yeah.
We also have to follow the policy that we have for class sizes. So some of our class sizes are lower, but if you were to combine them and put them into one, they would be over
They would
what
be
our
too
policy
big.
is. So I do get that quite a bit, and firsthand, my son was in a class size of 32 in second grade. So it has been done in East Brookfield in the past. It's not common, just for the simple reason that the policy does come
When
into
did they
effect.
find out about, remember when we were kids? Man, there was 1,000 kids in my classroom, but I'm sure it's,
It seemed to be that way for me, too.
I'm sure it's much easier for teachers with 20 instead of 40, but I mean, you look at my third grade picture, there was 40 kids in our class.
Right.
God bless that lady. I can't remember her name, but especially to have me in there. We have a calling question from Carol. What is the, Aaron's got horrible writing.
What is the percentage,
Well, then you read it.
I don't know if I can read it all. What is the percentage paid by school employees for benefits?
Oh, they're all different.
They're all
though.
different.
They
Yes.
range.
You'd have to know what benefit you're exactly looking at.
Yeah, you
correct?
have to know
Guessing
whether it's an
insurance.
individual or a family. Right now, they run from 75 to 85%. It's picked up by the district, and the reciprocal is paid by the employee.
What is it, A, B, C, and D, right? There's 4 units.
4 units.
And you can't talk about the teacher one, right? But the other 4, they've gone to 75, 25, right? The other 3?
There's 2 different, they agreed to 25% for new hires, and then, but
Even the other ones?
I don't, you know what,
Yeah.
it was district-wide, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it was? Oh, I
Yes.
thought the
Pretty
other
sure
one
that's the
was.
case,
Yes.
It was district-wide, but if you were already an employee, you stayed at 50%.
Stayed at what you were?
So the new hires went up to 25%.
Okay. And
How many classrooms at Maple Street School, and are they considering moving them?
I don't, that's still up in the air. We had I don't think anybody knows about this in the town, but we had a catastrophic failure of the heating system. So we're scrambling to find some place to, find something to heat the building for the next 45 days, but I think we're gonna talk about this Wednesday
On
night.
Wednesday
We have to
night,
make a
yes.
decision on what we're gonna do, and I think the town, Spencer owns that building.
Yep.
But we're responsible for all the repairs and maintenance. We have a company coming in tomorrow that's gonna give us a price on a temporary heating system. But I think Wednesday, we gotta
I think
figure
we
out
have-
what we're gonna do and
Right.
how much money we're gonna invest back into that building.
but thankfully,
And we have
yeah.
3
it's-
bids that we are getting for this.
Thankfully, it's the spring, you
Right.
know,
I mean,
It
it's
is.
school vacation, you couldn't ask
And-
for anything.
yeah, in the
If you
spring.
had to have something
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, you finally get a good one, a good
Yeah.
thing that happened at a good time.
But as far as closing it and moving the kids, we haven't really finished that yet. You know, we still gotta look and see how it's gonna affect other classrooms. There is room up at Wire Village. We can create 6 classrooms up there. My whole fight was to actually put an SOI out and make Wire Village K through 6.
Yeah, they should have done that years ago, you
Listen,
know, just,
That's part of the problem of being in this town, is that nobody looks past a day, never mind a year. We've got two very old buildings, Maple Street and Lake Street. Right now, Maple Street, to bring that up to code, you would probably have to put $8 or $10 million into that building. And Lake Street, as of right now, you would probably have to put, today's numbers, wild guess, 20, 24, $26 million. Where you could probably put an addition on Wire Village for about 10.
they were both built in the 50s, I think.
Maple Street's 1954.
Yeah, and Lake Street's
I think it's a little-
55, I think.
I think it's a little bit,
Is it a little
a
after?
little after that.
I thought on the plaque it said 55, but,
It could be, I don't know, but I know Maple Street's 54 because I was climbing on top of that boiler for.
yeah. I
good
went
to
to
have
Maple
experience,
Street.
right?
I went to Maple Street, it was brand new when I went. I interrupted you, I forget where we were. All right, so, next year, so class size is roughly the same, level of service roughly the same.
Roughly the same, and again, that's the piece that we didn't really put before the general public. Got here January 1st, you usually start this package in October. And I was here only 2 days a week, and sometimes 3 days a week, from January to now. So to have that little time, I was lucky to at least find the position for current year and get that information out, and then develop, the 700 and 800 some odd lines for 14. So that was about all I was able to do. Some miscellaneous, we, Head Start and things like that. So there were a lot of miscellaneous stuff that we did, and but we did not, and we were both acting superintendent and myself were very aware of, like I said, I use the term putting the face on the budget, where we try to explain what you're getting for your dollar. And you do that via principles, via instructional program, and even down into the minutia of an instructional
Right.
program. So we didn't get to do that this year. Now, should the override fail, we have a package ready that we will do that. We do want to explain the downside of what happens when you reach a critical point of expense and class sizes. There's always a possibility of a downward spiral. I've seen this in lots of districts where it just takes a long time for the district to come back financially and instructionally. So we're trying to avoid that. If we can find some middle ground, we would like to at least reflect that should the override not happen.
What was I going to ask? You got any questions? I can't remember the one I was just going to ask you. So May 14th, so the article for the school one is written that if the override fails, you have to redo the budget.
Redo
Because
the
obviously
budget.
we can't fund $2 million. But
Right.
so then the school will have to redo a budget, the school committee.
It's in
And what do you
30
have?
days.
45 days, right?
I think it's,
Oh, you have 30.
I think it's 30.
And then we have
30.
45 to schedule another meeting and another election. After that, if it fails again, and the problem, well, it's not a problem, but it's, so if it fails in either town, it fails.
correct.
So if Spencer votes for the override and East Brookfield doesn't,
It fails.
Fails.
because it's a two-district town, I know we have different
Right.
rules.
Correct.
When it's,
Yeah,
when
you
you
have
have
a
more,
two-thirds.
it's two-thirds, right?
It's
or
two-thirds,
something?
yeah.
So then after that 30 days, when you resubmit a budget to us, then we have 45 days. If that fails again, then we go to a district-wide meeting?
Two-town
Correct.
meeting.
Right, it's like a big meeting, but with two
Right.
towns.
Right.
And then that decides everything that night, right?
Yeah, and there's some operational problems that I'm not quite sure how it works in this district.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever gotten to that point. I know the budget's been voted down
think we have
before, but then
Yeah.
when it came back, it got passed, so.
It passed.
At some point, the state comes in. You go on a 1/12 schedule of the current year budget of the 25,383.
Starting fiscal July 1?
Starting January 1.
January.
No, I'm sorry.
July.
July 1. July 1.
Yeah.
And then the state, and they give you more chances to get the budget aligned.
Yeah, till
with what-
December, right?
You have till December, right?
And then they come in
And
and
then they
say,
come
you're
in
going to
to
pay
1/12.
this.
Right, and then they pretty much give you a price tag.
Oh, we don't want to get to that point.
No, we don't. We've seen enough at the state.
Yeah, I know, it's just a pain. once again, I was fooled by that guy too, so don't feel so bad. I mean, I thought he was like the greatest thing in the world, so. But you get what you paid for, so. In this case, you didn't get what you paid for. So next year, teachers getting laid off, or they just from attrition? Because I've had this question.
Well, yeah, the budget I just talked about, we're not laying off any teachers other than first-year hires.
Okay.
That's a problem.
Now, are these the ones that he hired and they weren't budgeted for? That
Correct.
laundry list of people? I know it was a ton of aides and.
Right. And it's not just teachers. I mean, there's eight.
No, I know there was a lot of people he hired that.
Right. And some of those have already left. So we'll have to call the staff and take a look at all that. We have a quasi contingency plan ready just in case, because we didn't want to have to start with 0 at bats, should the override fail. So we have a tentative plan of what to do and how that would look at a couple of different levels. So, like I said, we'll try to paint a picture of the instructional program at a couple of different levels, and you'll hear from principals.
Are you guys going to do that before the election? Try to get some of that out, or wait until after and see what happens?
After, right.
Okay.
'Cause unfortunately, if you put some of that information out there beforehand, the rumor mills just start.
Oh,
And
hey, it's a small town.
it is a small
I get
town,
it
but
every day.
why panic everybody
That's what happens.
Right.
before we really need to?
She used to get that, sorry to hear about Donnie, I got 3 months to live. Oh, you get it all the time. And then you just laugh and.
Not easy.
I feel your pain.
You get used to it and you laugh. I'm sure big cities have the same problem. You don't hear all the rumors because there's
You
so
don't,
many
because there's
people.
too many people.
Yeah, exactly. You only get a half a dozen coming back and forth. Okay, so May 2nd, there's the question on the warrant. So how it's written is I don't know, whatever it is, $7 million budget, that one number. And that's with that state mandated money that we have to give you. And then there's another question for that 2.180, whatever it is, on that budget. So the school has 2 questions this year instead of just one. So, I mean, obviously the first one will pass. That's the necessary budget. It always-
You're talking about the minimum local contribution?
Right, yeah, that,
Right.
is it 7 total with
That's
transportation?
$5,618,000.
But with everything, transportation.
And then you have the capital assessments and above minimum.
So then right after that is the question for this extra money. So, I mean, that could pass the town meeting, and then if it fails at the polls, then, and I would expect that to pass the town meeting. You can never tell, depends who shows up. I mean, last annual, we had to call people, we needed 100, we had like 60. So, I mean, we'll see.
No, I mean, and the select board, we had a meeting early on, I think, in the selectman office where we just we didn't have a budget, but we had a bunch of different levels. And so everybody kind of knew what the differential was between last year and this year at the various levels. So, although I was kind of taken back by this because this is new territory for me, Don, believe it or not.
That much of an
I had
increase,
never
yeah.
seen anything like it.
Yeah, I know, 30%. It's
Brand new
crazy.
territory. But it came as no surprise when they came up with a final figure, because remember that first meeting we had?
Yeah.
Just to give you some idea
Yeah.
of what we were doing, it was in that range.
Yeah.
I mean, even at this budget, it's still 18% differential.
No, it was, and you gave us that. You gave us, I think, 3 numbers that day we met.
Yeah, right.
And you said it was probably going to be this number, and it's close to roughly what you thought.
And even at the lowest level of 25 million, it was still a 16% increase, and that's below what we're working at now. So
That-
I mean, there was no way out of this.
That's the
There was no
problem.
way out of it.
And this was
It was
one of the
catch-22.
things that were hard for me at first, whatever the budget was last year, 25 something. It really
383.
wasn't that. It was $1.5 million less than that because you didn't get part of that revenue and you overspent, so that was, so it makes sense now, but it's still, is that a question for us? You hear the phone ringing.
Yeah, I heard the phone.
I
Must be
did.
something.
Yeah, they're too busy in there, I'm telling you.
That's what they do.
No questions? Yeah, there's one coming. All right, we got a written question.
There was an addition put on
Lake Street in 1979. You just wanted to
Really?
remind everybody of that, yeah.
Oh,
I don't remember that. Do you
I
remember?
wasn't around it here in 1979.
You weren't in 79?
No.
And that has to do with what?
I was like 20 years old. People, just, when all of a sudden I'll say, hey, do you remember that? And when you'll say no, and then somebody usually calls and says, oh no, this was Billy Bob's gas station back then. We get that all the time too.
Yeah, I was about 20 then, yeah.
Yeah, I was 20 in 79.
Just repeat the question, because they didn't just repeat what they said.
That there was an addition put on Lake Street School in 1979, right? Okay, so it was built in 54 and it was added on to in 79.
I guess.
Thank you, caller.
Still needs a lot of work.
Exactly.
The whole place needs to be remodeled.
Yeah, it's just old. All right, so anything else? We got a, what time is it? 4 minutes? 'Cause Aaron's very strict about the time, so it's a programming thing. Anything to add before we quit and get out of here?
The only thing I would like to say, not only as a school committee member, but as a parent, our kids in this district are our future. And they're going to be sitting here one day, and we need to support them as best we can.
Yeah, my kid's not going to be. I can tell you that. Wendy would, the boss would never allow that.
I agree with Mary. We have I took it upon myself to go to each school last year. and
Yeah, I remember when you did that,
Sit
yeah.
down with every administrator and teacher, and we've got a great district here. We've got some great teachers, we've got some great administrators. This is a bump in the road. It's a big bump. It's a bump in the road, and I just hope everybody kind of galvanizes and we can get through this and continue on. I mean, we graduated some fantastic seniors out of David Prouty to some very big Ivy League schools. Just goes to prove that, if we have a good machine, we can make a great product.
And what a great graduation that was last year at Mechanics
It was.
Hall.
It
Good
was.
job, Mr. O'Brien and everybody who was
It was
behind
fantastic.
it.
It brought the district or the school up to a whole nother level.
That was
And it's-
unbelievable.
And there was some good things that came out of the last year and a half or 2 years. We saved about $200,000 in maintenance. We saved a ton of money in heating the buildings by doing the proper maintenance on some of
Right.
the buildings. It's just unfortunate we get caught in a situation that,
We didn't
again,
plan for.
it's a big speed bump. And hopefully my kids are going to stay in the district. And I'm going to continue to work to move the district forward and voice my concerns. And
Okay, so May 2nd, once again, is town meeting. That's the annual town meeting where we decide where all the money, the town and the school, the money that the town's going to spend on various things, departments, and the money we give to the school. And May 14th is the election, so there'll be, besides the position races on there, there'll be 2 override questions, one for the rescue squad and one for the school department. All right, so next show is May 6th.
I think there's one more question.
There's one more question. Do we have time?
Yeah.
No time.
Next
Go.
show is May 6th, and once again, that'll be 13 years that the boss has put up with me. And,
Congratulations to you.
Yeah, God bless her. Can you imagine? No question? All right. So May 6th, and that's all I got. I couldn't tell you when the next selectmen's meeting is. I just get told to show up. No. All right, so we will see you next month on May 6th. So don't forget those important dates, May 2nd, May 14th. So we'll have one more show before the election, and we can give you an update on the town meeting at the next show. All right? So thank you to all the guests. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and we'll see you next month.
Good night.